Cheers. A toast to the king.
You elect will drink wine new with Yahweh Shai. You elect. As of right now, we say hopeful elect. You elect of Israel out there will drink wine new with our Lord Yahweh Shai in his Father's kingdom, which is going to be the kingdom of heaven here on this planet Earth once Yahweh Shai returns. When our Lord comes back, one of the first things he's going to do is have a toast with his men. He's going to have a toast with his men, those that stood stiffly for his name and his Father's name. Let's read this one more time. Matthew chapter 26, verse 29. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, which is wine, which is made from grapes, as you know. And our Lord, he loves to drink, man. That's something that our Lord took pleasure in when he was here on this planet Earth. He's not going to do it anymore until he returns to do it with you. Showing just how much he loves his elect, man. He's not even going to drink until he does it again with you. I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So what a moment that's going to be, man. And you can only imagine the quality of wine that's going to be. Our Lord Yahweh Shai, he has access to different things that we don't even know about, man. Access to different grapes you don't know about. It's an entirely different quality of life that we don't know about. But he's going to reveal it to you. He's going to give it to you when he returns. Now, you have what's called a loyal toast. A loyal toast. I'm going to read this real quick. A loyal toast is a salute given to the sovereign monarch or head of state of the country in which a formal gathering is given. In this case, the sovereign monarch or head of state would be Yahweh Shai. He's our sovereign monarch. He controls everything, man. But guess what? He's also going to extend that power to you elect. He's going to share that power with you. A loyal toast is a salute given to the sovereign monarch or head of state of the country in which a formal gathering is given, or by expatriates of that country, whether or not the particular head of state is present. In this case, the Lord will be present. So you're not going to have someone speaking for him giving a toast. He's going to host the toast. He's going to be there, man. We're living in a time we're going to meet Yahweh Shai. You're going to meet him face to face, which is proof also that we have to be changed. We can't meet the Lord like this. He's going to change you. He's going to crown you, and he's going to toast with you. Now let's read some more. It says, it is usually a matter of protocol at state and military occasions and a display of patriotic sentiment at civilian events. The toast is usually initiated and recited by the host, which will be Yahweh Shai, before being repeated by the assembled guests in unison.
To the kingdom! Cheers!
When Akim are among each other, you know, we'll do little small toasts, like Lashra, holding up cups. But imagine the Lord himself hosting it, man. And we join in. And I was reading something else, and pretty much they said in order to have what they call a loyal toast, you would use wine. That's the beverage of choice. And once again, our Lord, he's coming back, and we're going to see him with all that power, man. But he's going to extend that power to you. Now, reading on a monarch, it says a monarch is a head of state for life or until abdication, in this case for life. And therefore, the head of state of a monarch may exercise the highest authority and power in the state. Or others may wield that power on behalf of the monarch. And that will be you joint heirs. You different men that are going to reign with the Lord, man. Usually a monarch either personally inherits the lawful right to exercise the state's sovereign rights, often referred to as the throne or the crown, or selected by an established process from a family or cohort eligible to provide the nation's monarch. In this case, the Heavenly Father Yahweh himself selected his son Yahushua. And once again, when our Lord returns, he's going to wield that power to you elect as well. Once again, he's going to change you, he's going to crown you, and he's going to have a toast with you. A kingly toast.
To the kingdom! Cheers! Toast with the king! Raise your glasses, my friends. A toast with the king. A toast with the king. Raise your glasses, everyone. A toast to a prosperous future. To the king. To our glorious future. To the victors, blow the spoils. Raise your glasses. Cheers. Raise your chalices to the golden age of our kingdom. A toast to the king.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards your brothers, and peace and blessings, salutations to hopefully out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful leg, the believers, the listeners who may have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. All right, and what we're gonna get into today. All right, this morning dealing with morning news and privacy. You know, it looks like digital ID is on the agenda. Okay, because we know the devil's end game. Okay, is to establish, all right, a technocracy. All right, and within this technocracy, okay, you will have an AI infrastructure. Okay, which you're going to have, everyone, okay, gathered to this centralized, database system. Okay, which is going to be ran on a digital system. Okay, and the ultimate device that this devil, okay, wants to mandate is the micro C-HIP, which is the MOTB. Okay, and what we're seeing is steps being made through gradualism, okay, to get to that point. All right, and as we always go into 2 Corinthians 2. Okay, let's get this 2 Corinthians 2. Okay, and 11. All right, reading NLT. All right, 2 Corinthians 2 and 11. It says, so that Satan would not outsmart us, for we are familiar with his evil schemes. Okay, so we're familiar with the devices, of Satan, his wicked, plots and schemes, because we understand where he's trying to go. Okay. Like they say in New Orleans, we understand where he's trying to go with. Okay. And when you go here, uh, go to his word schemes. Okay, in the Greek.
Strong's G 3540. Naima.
Nine.
Naima.
Okay, it says an evil purpose. Okay, an evil purpose, that which thinks the mind, thoughts or purposes, man. So we know this man's evil purpose, what his intentions are. Okay, so this is why we're able to see him making steps towards their way, because we understand the end game. Okay, according to prophecy. You see, prophecy has put us on game with this devil. Okay, that's why you go here. Let's get Proverbs 22. Okay, Proverbs 22:3 says, a prudent man foresees danger and takes precautions. Okay, and we know that we're coming to the time where we're going to have to let this system go. Okay, we're coming to a time where we're going to have to trust in our power. You see, and that's why we've been, building trust during this grace period. The Lord has been conditioning us to trust him. Okay, within this grace period, man. All right, and this is why we're detaching from this world and cleaving to the world to come. All right, and it's all through faith. You see, it says, but the simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences, man. All right, because a lot of people, they're just blindly trusting Esau, this technology, this system, this way. Okay, but it's leading to great judgment. See, this whole system is about to be judged. Okay, and a lot of people are going to be simple and be joined, all right, with this system. All right, as the Lord is getting ready to judge this system, man. Okay, so this is what we're seeing happening. All right, is this devil? He's gradually. Okay, let's go here. It's the word for gradualism. He's gradually rolling this thing out, and he causing these certain events to happen. To where he can fast track and implement these things. Now you go into this word gradualism. It says a policy of gradual reform rather than sudden change or revolution. Okay, so we're seeing gradual moves being made, okay, to get to his ultimate agenda, which is to see help everybody. All right, to put everybody, okay, to merge everybody with his technology. Okay, so let's go from there. I want to get this first video now. We know, okay, this latest thing that happened, all right, dealing in DC. All right, the two officers that were shot. Now, when these things happen, whether to get into, okay, did this actually happen, to get into the details of the situation, the main thing to pay attention to is the language that these devils begin to use, all right, to address these situations. Okay, because the language tells, all right, what the agenda is concerning the situation. Okay, so I'm gonna play a little bit of this, and we're gonna pay attention to some of the language being used. And what we have to understand, they have certain flight bans on certain countries. Okay, dealing with their migrants. No more migrants being taken out of certain countries, and due to this latest thing. And they're using the airport as a platform to springboard a lot of these things that they want to implement within all of society. Okay, so let's play this, okay, and then we'll segue to some more precepts. So let's
and genuinely think that they're a great resource. If you want to stay informed on U.S. politics and more, subscribe through this QR code or my link below at ground.news/Legia for 40% off this unlimited access Vantage plan. It comes out to $5 a month for unlimited access to all the features I've mentioned. Thanks, Ground News. In the wake of the shooting on Wednesday, Trump sent off a bunch of posts on Truth Social and also made a public address that was posted to YouTube and the White House website. And while we cannot trust the facts and figures that any arm of the U.S. federal government publishes anymore, it is still useful to keep an eye on their announcements in order to get a grasp on what they are going to do. That is the one area where you can place your trust. They are going to try to do what they say they're going to do, no matter what the law says about it. There were a few things about the address that he gave that stood out to me. The language he used, that should absolutely be analyzed as not unbiased communications, but as propaganda from the state. Propaganda that is highly successful on Trump's base of supporters. Trump referred to the alleged shooter as an animal and his actions as savage. That was no mistake. He calls Afghanistan a hellhole on earth and immigration the single greatest threat facing our nation. It is a risk to our very survival. He claims 20 million unknown and unvetted immigrants came in under Joe Biden, singling out Somalia as a country with no real government whose people immigrated to Minnesota and are ripping apart the once great state. Just as a side note, I'm coming to you live from Minneapolis, where most of the Somali immigrants in this state live. And I'm so sorry to report that there are no roving Somali gangs in our streets. Minneapolis is certainly not without problems, but I'm boots on the ground in the great state of Minnesota, and I can confirm the immigrants are not the problem. The lack of gun control is, the lack of affordable housing is. I've lived in Minneapolis for most of the last decade, and I can say I have never once had a negative experience with a Somali immigrant. And guess what? Even if I have the critical thinking skills to realize it would have probably been that person and not the entire Somali immigrant community who is to blame. Like, let's be so fucking for real here. But like I said, facts and figures don't matter to this regime. And Trump is now using this attack perpetrated by a lone gunman, allegedly, as pretext to expand his anti-immigrant rhetoric and actions. Because this shooting marks a noticeable shift. And I think we are entering into a new expanded era of immigration crackdown in this country. For the last 11 months, most of the focus has been on immigrants from Latin America. Tren de Aragua was named a terrorist group. Venezuelan migrants were especially targeted.
The Northern Kingdom, because they always talk about immigrants, but then, the only people that's, that's the face of immigration is who? All right, the Northern tribe, which there's immigrants from all nations that's in America, okay? Showing is also a pretense to Jacob's trouble, But we're going to keep paying attention to the language, that Trump is using, okay?
One who looks Latino and had a tattoo could be accused of gang membership and shipped off to El Salvador. I'm not saying the regime wasn't also targeting immigrants from other backgrounds, including Muslims. Certainly they were. But the rhetoric was really focused on the millions and millions of illegal immigrants, terrorists, and cartel members the regime claimed were crossing over our southern border from the rest of Latin America. That was the focus of much of their propaganda. So much so that a June directive banning immigration, especially from Muslim countries, kind of flew under the radar in the onslaught of headlines. But it is that directive that the regime is now relying on to move forward with cracking down on Muslim immigrants with greater force and impunity. The legwork has already been done. This is just them following through with their past promises. And again, we are going to take them at their word when it comes to what they say they're going to do, because they
see with this devil, because his end game is the prophets. And like I said, she's going to go into what Trump has said, but the end game is the prophets. So there's two things that they're doing, okay, with this so-called target on migrants, okay? They're pushing for digital ID, which is a segue, demonize, okay, the tribes, and also eventually demonize the prophets because, all right, they're already, okay, making the northern tribes the face of migrants, and then they dealt with the Haitians, which was the southern kingdom. Okay, and now they're tying into Muslim, which Muslim is is not a race, it's an ideology. Okay, and for the longest they've been trying to link us with what Muslim, all right, extremism, Islamic extremists. Okay, they guy that had the page, with the two swords and the green flag, and I think it was Army of Yahushua, was a channel. Okay, and had the same flag as the Islamic flag. Okay, as ISIS. You see, so these devils, they're slithering to build that case. And that's one aspect of it. But then you have the digital ID, which we're gonna segue into. Okay, already been what's already been done, trending towards that way, and it begins with what? These airports. Okay.
They will certainly try, no matter what the law says. And Trump laid it out pretty clearly on Truth Social. He said, quote, "I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, and remove anyone who is not an asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, and all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization." Some of those things, like ending federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens, are country.
So who you think he's speaking of? All right, when he said he will remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country. Okay. Anybody that's a security risk or non-compatible with Western civilization. Now, who teaches against these things? Who teaches against Babylon the Great, spiritual Egypt, Sodom and Gomorrah? Who teaches against Westernization? Okay, so who can he link within this ideology, man? Okay, you always have to pay attention to these devil response to these situations. I say, don't get caught up in, where the gunman, he was on this building. They said he was on that building. They say he drove a black car. Then some people say he drove a white car. Don't get too caught up in that. Pay attention to the language of these devils in the aftermath of these events, because that's the real agenda. Okay? So you have that aspect of it, which I think the brother got a precept. Get a couple precepts you brothers got. And now let's segue here. Okay. This is the brother chosen ones are Israelites. Ephesians 5:15 says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil," man. Okay, and this thing is finna shift. All right, that's why we in the time to be on point in the spirit. Okay, this is not the time to be out the loop, not know what's going on. Okay, you just floating around, happy to be an Israelite with no understanding. Okay, not knowing the happenings, and you see how things are changing. Okay, this is a different world, man. Okay, and with this regime in office, anything can happen any day. Okay, the elites are going for everything behind this guy, Donald Trump. Okay, Nero 47. Okay, so this is time to be circumspect. Okay, redeeming the time, looking at these things and understanding. Okay, we need to be tapped into our power. Okay, we need to make sure, because redeeming the time, because all the time we was in this world, we were displeasing to our power. So now we redeem that time by being pleasing to our power. Okay, so this is a time of redeeming the time, because the days are evil, man, and that puts a hedge around us, man. Okay, this is the time we want to be pleasing to our power more than ever, man. Which is putting a hedge around us, man. Okay, so let's go here. Let's get this, because this is what they gradually want to build up to, man. Okay, so now let's see what they got going on with the airports, which is a gradual step, all right, towards this MOTB. Okay, so let's play this.
A call for an uprising.
Beginning February 1st at airports nationwide, it might cost you an extra $45 to fly without a real ID. TSA now bumping the cost up after announcing last week it would cost travelers $18.
The fee was necessary because we needed to modernize the system. We needed to make sure that the system is safe.
Flyers without a real ID can pay the fee online before arriving at TSA checkpoints. They'll get an email to present to the TSA officer.
So if you get to the airport and you don't have a real ID or another acceptable form of ID, and you haven't gone through the online verification process, and you happen to make it all the way to the TSA checkpoint there, they may pull you out of line and go through a verification process that could take up to 30 minutes and cost you $45.
TSA officials say that fee covers the costs of modernizing the agency's identity verification program, which will be used to analyze a traveler's biographic or biometric information to verify their identity. But even then, it's not guaranteed they'll get through security.
It's really all about security. It's really all about making sure that we have the safest system and making sure that we know who's processing through our airports and getting on board our flights.
Well, that $45 fee will cover TSA checkpoint access for a 10-day period and can be used multiple times in that period. TSA officials say the best way to avoid the fee and any possible delay at the airport is to get a real ID.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show.
All right. So what we have to understand, is that this devil, okay, is getting ready to charge $45 per traveler. All right, if they don't have this real ID. Okay. And this is a part of how this devil used gradualism. Okay, because first, he makes it voluntarily. Where people voluntarily go get particular things. All right. And then he goes into a phase of making it inconvenient for you not to have it. Okay. Just like with cash, even like cash is like you're inconveniencing people when you use cash. Okay. To force people to use, the credit card or debit card, which is, digital currency. It's conditioning for digital currency. So his going back to his schemes, okay, he used this method of gradualism where it's voluntarily, then he makes it inconvenient for you not to have it, then he mandates for you to have it. Okay, so we're in the time now where he's making it inconvenient for people that are not having these real IDs, and these real IDs is nothing but a segue to digital ID. Okay, is introducing people to biometrics, an ID that's linked to biometrics. Okay, so this devil is look like the digital ID is the agenda before the C-HIP. Now it can change. It's not in concrete, but just looking at how this thing is trending, seeing what's happening globally, the system, the digital ID system that are already in place in the world. You're dealing with China and India, all right, which are China and India make up 1/3 of the Earth's population itself. Okay, so see, just to see the way things are trending. Okay, this devil, okay, seems as if he has the digital ID on the agenda before the C-HIP. Okay, so we'll just see how these things play out. All right, so he's going to go into the biometric aspect of it. So let's let this play.
TSA is now threatening a $45 fee for travelers who do not have a real ID, as you heard. And of course, making your day even more difficult than the $50 fee, is getting pulled out of line for about 30 additional minutes so that you could miss your flight. Remember when the government told us that the Real ID was going to be voluntary? Well, that evaporated pretty quickly. Now, why did that happen? Because nobody was signing up for the Real ID. I covered it at the time. They were telling you there was lines around the block to get a Real ID. People were not complying. So now the government is forcing your hand by threatening you. It's almost like when the government told us that they would create a vaccine for an imaginary virus, a vaccine that would end up shedding onto other people and making them ill, and in fact, terminally killing a lot of people as well. And the government said, hey, look, we're going to have a vaccine. The vaccine is going to come out. All you got to do is go get vaccinated once and you could return to normal, right? And then all those normal lives anymore. In fact, we're going to start banning them from restaurants, from grocery stores. That was the plan that they had in place. And of course, that's because they always give you the illusion that these things are voluntary, just like the digital ID will be voluntary until, of course, it's mandated. Just like, well, you don't have to switch to a smartphone. You can still have a flip phone until, of course, all those big DARPA companies like Verizon and AT&T tell you that you can't have a flip phone anymore. And for people out there wondering what's the detriment with the Real ID, because what they do is they show you this image of a license and they go, look, the only difference is, look, there's a little check mark at the top that says Real ID on it. So that's the only difference. And the sheep will go, oh, that's the real difference. These people are conspiracy nuts who don't want a Real ID. What's the difference? It's like getting a new license, right? No, what it's about is biometrics. This is the transition into biometrics. It's more than just facial recognition that they are after. This is the biometric beast system. And if I told you in the past, imagine I told you that, because biometrics really is the equivalent of, getting fingerprinted, right? It's like facial biometrics is geometric measurements of facial features. So they take a deep image of your face, the little crevices in your face, every little detail imaginable. They don't just take a photograph of your face and say cheese like they do at the DMV normally for an old license. If I told you when you got a license 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, that you'd have to be fingerprinted for your license, you'd say absolutely not. That's what this is the equivalent of, right? Now, we know that people get fingerprinted for certain jobs, being around children, so that the government could see if the people have a criminal record, if they've ever been arrested, if they have any, if they're in the police database, right? Well, now they want us all in one system, and this is the biometric system they're transitioning us into. And of course, the Real ID eventually becomes the digital ID, and that's what people need to understand. The Real ID, what they're doing here is they're forcing you by making your life inconvenient, by saying, hey, you have a trip coming with your family. You guys are going to CIA Disney, or you going down, you going to California. Where you go? You going to the national parks? All right, well, if you're coming to the airport with a family of 4, each one of you is going to pay $50 in fees. Okay, so you still might bring your passport, but we're going to make you pay $50 in fees because your passport's no longer good enough, because you're making our life a hassle, right? Suddenly it's a hassle for the TSA and everybody at the airport to allow you on the plane. They're so full of crap. This is about big tech biometric surveillance system. It's the biometric digital ID grid that they're building out. And this is the first step in transitioning us into a one system biometric surveillance state. Now, where does it go from here? Because again, when we talk about the mark of the beast and we talk about a digital ID, it's different than the Real ID. The Real ID is the beginning of normalizing biometrics. You giving up your facial recognition, your facial metrics to Big Brother, where they could store it inside of one massive database, right? Remember, all that other stuff that's going into those data centers is everything you've ever done, everything you've written online, every tracker that's been on your phone will show every location you've ever been, every single location you've been with your car. If your car has a camera, everything that's ever been seen with your car, all of it's going to be stored for your own personal digital footprint that are going to be inside of these databases. But the transition from here is into the blockchain. So for anyone out there that doesn't know, you've heard blockchain, you've heard Bitcoin. I'm sure some of you dabble in crypto. Maybe you invest in it to make money. But really, there's not a huge mass understanding of what it is. People just hear Bitcoin and they think, oh, digital currency. They hear blockchain and they have no idea what it is. So let me explain how this is going to tie into blockchain, because the goal here is a digital database. Okay, it's a ledger that is distributed among the nodes of a peer-to-peer network. The blockchain is going to store pretty much anything that could be represented as data. For example, yes, currency, crypto tokens, all metadata, all digital assets, all ownership records inside of a blockchain, okay? So that means all things you own, right? Your car, your home, whatever valuables you have, all of this data is going to be stored in a blockchain. Everything you've written online, all of your health information, and then all other things like who you voted for. All of those types of things will go inside of the blockchain. But the goal isn't to just have a blockchain. The blockchain is going to be embedded in your DNA. As crazy as that sounds, you could look it up for your.
This nigga is crazy, man. You know, this nigga is crazy. That's a good point. You know, tech is no longer about convenience but control. You know, tech could have stopped in the 90s, you know. And see, I say the things that did double, because technology, technology is not wicked, it's his application of technology. Okay, it's his reasoning for creating particular things. Okay, and then there should be boundaries, you know, with technology, even into the law. You know, a brother can post their law, you know, thou shall not make insertions, you know, in the skin. All right. There's even certain, you know, precepts about, you know, spying on your servants. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. All right. But any technology that goes in you, that's off. Okay. Because like I say, technology itself, the Lord gave us wisdom and, you know, to come up with things. That's why most inventions come from Jake. You know, because Jake is a creator, you know, and Jake is about, you know, Jake in their natural state is about making life, you know, more convenient. Okay. Which there's a level where you can go too convenient to where it can harm you, you know, it can destroy you, you know, as you know, it can destroy your critical thinking. You know, that's why you got this thing called cognitive damage. You know, that this devil's AI, because technology isn't supposed to think for you. You know, it's supposed to aid you. All right, as you critical think. All right, but he intentionally has AI thinking for most people to dumb people down because he knows the cognitive, okay, damage that he's doing, okay, with this technology, man. You know, what a brother could, I think it's a law in Leviticus, the cutting in the flesh. I was looking on something else. Spine. Let me see if I can find spine. Oh, sorry. So this devil wants to put technology in your DNA, man. You know, going way too far. Okay? Going way too far, man. You see? But this is what he's gradually, okay, let me see. This is what he's gradually working towards, man. Okay? Fine. Okay, cool. Yep, the water bro. It's the brother Bayan Yashala. All right, Leviticus 19 and 28. Okay, it says, "Ye shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I'm the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai." So when this devil's technology gets to the point, okay, where it's going inside you, that's off. You know? And like I say, in the kingdom, we're gonna have tech. All right, it's gonna be on a whole nother level, and it's gonna be, all right, compatible, okay, or tawab, which is good or agreeable to nature, man. It's not gonna destroy, okay, nature. All right. Yep, and the brother got this. This is Ecclesiastes. And if you could, bro, see if you can get it in the NLT or the AMP. You know, Bob Gashar, if you're able to do it, you know. Because I know some brothers be, just listening, are doing other things. But this is Brother Chosen One, or Israelites. Ecclesiastes 7:21 says, also take no heed unto all words that are spoken. Okay, so you're not supposed to be trying to listen to everything that's being spoken. And that's what this devil wants to do with his technology. It's one of the wicked things that he wants to do with his technology. He wants to listen to everything that's spoken, man. Okay? Because he know that he wicked, so he's trying to see who's on to him. It says, also take no heed unto all the words that are spoken, lest thou hear thy servant curse thee, for oftentimes also thy own heart know that thou thyself likewise has cursed others, man. So there's a level of privacy. Even your servants, you're supposed to give to your servant. There's a certain level of privacy that they're supposed to have. Okay. Yep. The water, brother, you run me Shaw 144. All right, it says it's the NLT, Ecclesiastes 7:21. All right, and this is directly a cut against this double surveillance technology, man. It says, don't eavesdrop on others. You may hear your servant curse you. Okay? Don't eavesdrop on others. You may hear your servants, all right, curse you, man. Okay, and this was this devil, his main thing. Even now, these phones we have is always listening. The TV, even when it's off, it's always listening. Okay, you got these new cars with all this technology in it, is listening. Okay, the Ring camera is always watching, listening. Okay, and the Lord speaks against it. All right, and the brother got in the GNT. Yep, and it says Ecclesiastes 7:21 in the GNT, it said, don't pay attention to everything people say. You may hear your servant insulting you. Okay, and you yourself know that you have insulted other people many times, man. So there's a certain, all right, level of privacy that people are supposed to have. Okay, and this devil, being the tyrant that he is, he uses technology to invade, people's sovereignty, man. The damn devil. So let's look at that. Let's segue here. So what we have to understand that America, is behind other countries, when it goes into digital public infrastructure, DPI. Okay, they're behind. All right, and what we have to understand is, you look at China, India, even Russia, all right, the UK, they're ahead. You see, so even when you go here in the UK, all right, this digital, they're ahead. They're past the real ID. They're to the digital ID now, under the threat that you won't be able to work if you don't have it. Okay, so they're ahead. Okay, of America. So we're looking at, it's good to look at what they got going on across the pond. All right, to kind of see where this devil is going. Okay, because they know in America they're gonna have to wrestle these niggas, man. You see, so because UK doesn't, it has way more stricter gun laws, and okay, so they know America's a powder keg. All right, they want civil unrest, but they want to be able to control the civil unrest. Okay, so we're seeing, they're really tiptoeing when it comes to implementing particular things in America. All right, which these other nations, they're already, hitting the ground running. So let's play this.
Let's talk about the UK, shall we? The UK continues its very fast descent into a surveillance state, which is devoid of free speech and privacy. Two crazy stories that have unfolded over the past few hours, over the past 24 hours. First, according to reports in GB News, local councils are quietly building drone fleets and training drone pilots to carry out full surveillance ops on its citizens. Part of the plan is to unleash these drones to basically police antisocial behavior. The hell does that mean? Whatever that means, I don't know, because apparently CC television cameras, which are all over the damn area, and street patrols weren't like dystopian enough to know what you're speaking, what you're thinking, what you're doing. Sunderland's got 13 drones ready to spy from the skies already. Most of these locales already do. And many city councils now are pairing them with AI facial recognition. So you're already part of a database, and they're going to be tracking you from the sky. We wanted to bring in Jim Ferguson today from the UK, who is always up on all of this and tries to keep his people sane over there. One of the smartest people and one of the most based individuals in the UK. Jim, great to see you, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Clayton, always great to be on with you. Thank you for that introduction. And more craziness unfolds in the United Kingdom. And it just goes from one dystopian measure to another, doesn't it?
It seems fake. Like when I see these stories out of the UK, I'm like, this has to be fake. But then I think about it, the United States is doing the very same thing, launching drone surveillance in the United States. This is coming here. So this, in many ways, the UK has become like a cautionary tale, like 6 months ahead of what the United States is now getting under Palantir and all of the stuff that we're seeing in the United States. So what do we know about this drone program specifically? Like, how is it, do we know the mechanics of how it's going to monitor people?
Well, these drones, as we've seen technology increase and a much more drone use over the last couple of decades being employed and deployed in places like Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, it's inevitable that law enforcement and the police are going to start to use it more and more as well. And you made a good point when you mentioned facial recognition, because what they're doing is they're creating AI databases nationally. This is going to be linked into digital ID, the Brit card that they're calling it. The excuse is it's going to deal with mass illegal immigration, which if you believe that, you believe anything. That's nothing to do with that. This is about control. This is the globalist mindset. They want to surveil everybody. And when they say antisocial behavior, it might be their idea of antisocial behavior. I mean, people just going for a walk, minding their own business, taking the dog out for a walk, they will all be targeted. And I think, actually, Clayton, it's because they fear the people. That's really, I think, what it boils down to. They're terrified of the people waking up to what they've really been doing. This is all part of a control grid, turning it into a prison planet.
That's what it seems like to me. So this antisocial behavior has gotten a lot of headlines because it's literally what they're saying they're going to be looking for. This isn't like made up. Antisocial behavior. So what do they think it like? In Europe, of course, we lived in Portugal for 5 years. One of the moves that the European Union has made is that if you're transacting in cash, a certain number of euros beyond whatever 300 euros in Spain, 500 in other countries, that you are considered to be on the gray market, aka a terrorist, because only terrorists would use cash, right? So you're antisocial, like you just don't feel like hanging out with anybody. Like I'm not very, I'm not like a huge people person. And so I guess under these drone, I would be considered like antisocial. Like I just don't want to hang out, this weekend, I just want to keep to myself. So they're going to be watching me. They're going to be putting me in some sort of a database. We've been tracking Clayton's movements. We've been tracking Jim's movements. And you know what? He's just not going out to party every night now. So he's kind of on that gray list. We got to keep an eye out for him.
I can guarantee you we're already on that list, Clayton. But one of the other things they'll be watching, out for is national flags. If you take pride in your country, if you fly the American flag, if you fly the Union flag or your nation's flag, that will be a clear indication that there's something not quite right with you, because that's how they think. They are completely bereft of common sense. But actually, I think it's worse than that. I think they actually hate the British people. Starmer is one of the most deeply unpopular prime ministers in existence, and his Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel from Accounts, Rachel Reeves, is about as unpopular as he is. The two of them are really wrecking the country, and it doesn't surprise me when I hear about this big brother surveillance state that's creeping in, using drones, using facial recognition, mandating that people are going to have to be given digital ID, or they won't be allowed to work. They won't be allowed to use public transport. They won't be allowed to fly in airplanes. It is dystopian beyond measure. Orwell would be turning in his grave right now, the author of...
So, as you can see, all right, in the UK, they're ahead of America with the digital ID. America, they're still on the real ID. They're getting ready to enforce real ID, making it inconvenient for you not to have it. Okay, so now in the UK, okay, they're going forward with the digital ID, okay, to link you what to digital infrastructure, DPI, digital public infrastructure, all right, to where they can begin to run a social credit system, okay, because as people are waking up to who they are, you know, they're having to push things back. They're having setbacks, man, you know, because their agenda is being talked about constantly, okay, and they have to do something, all right, to silence the other side, okay, and the social credit score, okay, would limit your access, okay, to the internet, okay, to you know, society, all right, travel, okay. So this digital ID looks like it's going to be on the agenda, man. That he's going to roll this out, and this will be, you know, one step away from just changing that digital ID to a micro C-HIP. Okay, and the micro C-HIP has been talked about, you know, for so long. You know, I can see why the devil wouldn't come straight out with it. Now things can change. You know, we're just speculating as we follow. You know, it can shift gears, and hey, he just goes straight to it. Okay, but the way things are trending, all right, and how this devil is moving, and what he has already established, you know, with, you know, digital ID systems, like I say, in China and India, even in Russia and certain other countries. Okay, you know, Jamaica, you know, they're telling you about, you know, this digital system. Nigeria, you know, is heavily into the digital system. Australia, so forth and so on. Okay, so it's looking like this devil, you know, he's getting ready to implement, you know, digital ID as a pretense to the micro C-HIP, because the digital ID, okay, will be more acceptable by people, you know, because people do everything on their phone anyway. You know, Apple Pay, Google Pay, okay, the Venmo, Cash App. Everybody used to, you know, doing everything through their phone. Their phone is the middleman. Okay, so how easy would it be to slap an ID on there? Okay, as you can just, you know, have scanned in different places, and, you know, the bars, the clubs, the you know, the games. Okay, so this devil, he's setting up this infrastructure, man. All right, and you best believe when he sets it up to where you have to sign on to the internet, okay, it's gonna be a drastic change in what's allowed, all right, to be talked about. Okay, so let's play some more.
1984, if he could see the reality of things in the United Kingdom today. And there are still 12,000 British journalists and people locked up for memes and posts.
12,000 British journalists locked up for posts on social media. 12,000. Okay. Who you think he's going to target in America? Okay.
Social media, you can't make it up.
You know, there was something that went viral this past couple of days. It was Glenn Beck interviewing a friend of the show, Whitney Webb. And, you know, he's saying, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Like, look, I'm a good person. I don't do anything wrong. Hey, if you want to I guess you want to go through all my emails, you want to look at everything I do, then, you know, I've got nothing to hide. Right. But she just shut him down, because it's not about that at all. It's about not having anything to hide. I think you and I probably would agree with that. It's more about, what won't I have access to because you don't like my politics? You don't like how I carry myself. I can't get on a bus. I can't travel because I traveled too much, because my Brit card won't allow me to. They've been watching me. They know that, right? It's about freedom. It has nothing to do with, I've got nothing to hide.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
And that used to be what most normal people would say when they were putting up huge amounts of CCTV cameras in the town centres and the shopping markets. People say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to be worried about, have you? And people would rather naively go along with that narrative. By the way, I love Glenn Beck. We followed each other on X for a long time, and Whitney Webb's a superstar. But, you know, they're right, and she's right to say that, because this is a complete invasion of people's privacy, and they are nefarious in what their intent is. They don't like us. They don't like people wanting to live private lives or in freedom or in truth. And this is the sort of the dystopian arm of the state that is now exercising greater controls and invasion of people's privacy every single day and week that goes past. And of course, the other thing as well is, Clayton, that the regulatory powers haven't quite caught up with this yet. Now, hopefully they will. Hopefully there will be a change in government. Hopefully that will happen. But until it does, they're going to be rolling this technology out and surveilling everybody, just to keep everybody under this sort of overarching grip of the authoritarian state. It's just really crazy stuff. But people need to wake up fast, and they need to get this government gone. They are beyond a joke at this point. They're actually quite dangerous to our freedoms.
Can you maybe talk about some of the mechanics of this? And I want to jump to our second story here, but is running for parliament. Who would be controlling these databases? Because we're talking about these, you can maybe educate our American audience. We have a big UK audience that watches us as well, but there's a lot of us in America that maybe don't understand how the government apparatus would work here. So who would be in charge of, because I think in the United States, we think, it'd be the NSA. They have a history of spying on us. So it's in one database. Is this local areas? Because I would think, well, maybe it's this, certain states would have access to it, but in the United States, it's probably like a federal program, some sort of a federal database that's monitoring. Would you have these lackeys sitting there smoking cigarettes, looking, just sitting there all night, studying this stuff? What's going on here? How would this work?
I don't think they would be as cool as that, Clayton. I think they'd probably be quite nerdy, eating donuts or something. No, the way it works is, We've got MI5, which is our internal security mechanisms and agents that are involved in counterterrorism, and they do serious organised crime and things like that as well. We've also got the specialist policing units and the intelligence services that work with them. On the foreign side, we've got the SIS, the Secret Intelligence Services, or more commonly known as MI6, and they're very good at what they do. The agents, the people involved with that, aren't actually the problem. But some of the policing in the London Metropolitan Police, for example, they're really dystopian, and what they're doing to British people right now is shocking beyond measure. I know that there's another story coming up, so I won't say too much about that. But there will be databases and people running those databases, collecting that information. But a lot of it will actually be controlled by artificial intelligence, and
a lot of it will be controlled by artificial intelligence. Okay, so it's going to be AI that's going to be flagging, and giving you a credit score for the most part. Okay, it's not going to be, each individual has someone assigned to them to watch, their behavior. No, it's going to be AI. That's why there's certain words you say, certain things you do, certain things you post. Okay, because what gets our videos taken down, is AI. Okay, when brothers get strikes and, it's AI that's doing it. Okay, that's why when you put on the caption, you see AI has become, because at first AI is speaking Paleo Hebrew now. You had a time when AI, they couldn't formulate the Hebrew words that brothers were saying. Now AI can speak Paleo Hebrew. Okay, it's been trained, to speak Paleo Hebrew by all these videos. So now there's certain talking points, there's certain buzzwords. That's why brothers speak in a particular way. It's to bypass the AI algorithms that throw red flags. So that's what he wants to bring to everyday society. How you interact with society, AI is going to be monitoring and governing and giving you a social credit score. And that social credit score, is going to allow you access, or deny you access to this system, man. This is the type of system the devil wants, because he wants, all right, to social engineer, all right, a society of complete compliance. Okay, he don't want to ever have to deal with a rebellion, whistleblowers. He doesn't want to have to deal with that anymore. Okay, so in this system, all right, he plans to have complete control, okay, of people's behavior on a whole nother level. Okay, enchantments, they're not good enough anymore. He needs something in place, all right, to where if you don't behave a certain way, you don't have access. You see, he's taking the control he's already got, and he wants to take it to a whole nother level, man. Okay, this is what the devil is on. Okay, so like he said, it's going to be AI. Okay, that's why there's so much emphasis on what these data centers. Okay, because he needs major data centers to run a global social credit system. He needs major data centers everywhere, man, because you're going to take up a lot of resources, man. Okay, so it's going to be a shit show, him trying to throw all this together, man. Okay, it's going to be wild, man. 2026. Okay, the way it's trending is going to be wild. It's just devil trying to throw all this together. Let's play a little more of this.
There's a major grid going up, right? So it's not going to be just operators sitting there. I mean, we would like to think it's human beings that's doing it, but actually it's going to be artificial intelligence. It's going to be playing a much, much greater role. And there will be databases of people who have gone to protests, who have maybe shown their faces, carried flags, patriotic flags on marches. They will all have been surveilled already. That's what I'm saying. Any of us who have gone to marches in this country or in other countries, we will be on a database. So we will already be marked. So those drones that are going to be flying overhead, for example, at the next Unite the Kingdom rally in London, they will be able to zone in, home in, and they will know exactly who's there and where they're from, where they live, and everything about them, especially if it gets linked into digital ID, because everything that your bank accounts, your health records, your home address, your date of birth, who your families are, who you're married to, who your sons, your daughters, all of that information is going to be linked into that. The big worry for a lot of people is, what if it gets hacked? We've seen so many cyber attacks on big business and banks. Who's to say that might not happen then as well? So I think people are rightly worried about it. But two out of every three British people are very, very, very much against digital ID in the Brit card. It's really a bit of a flop for the government, but they are still trying to push it out.
Well, I mean, if you know you're going to go to one of these rallies and you're going to be under the surveillance, that would create.
Yeah, so this is what the devil is on, man. You just watching and seeing how he moving. It's showing that he could, all right, roll this thing out. Okay, it seems like he's going to go the digital ID route, all right, and segue from there to the MOTB, because the digital ID will link you to this DPI, digital public infrastructure. Okay, and then he can switch from once he gets you on the DPI, the digital public infrastructure. Now all he will have to do is put a device in you, okay, which would include everything that's already on your digital ID. Okay, they're going to have a database on you. They're already going to have, okay, this person this is beliefs, this is medical, this is, this is pattern, this is how he moves, this is history, this, that. Okay. So that digital ID is just another way to grab more data and quantify you, okay, within his data system. Okay. And then he can take that, put it on the C-hip, okay, a microchip. All right, and then mandate that microchip, man. Okay, so it looks like he's using this digital ID to roll this system out. Okay, that he's going to use for his MOTB system, man. Okay, so let's go here. I see brother got a few. Let's go here. This is the brother Kazakh Bunny. How the Proverbs 4:16 said, "For they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away, unless they cause some to fall." All right, And this devil is all about, mischief, and presenting his mischief as an upgrade, as more convenience, as his way of, enhancing society. Okay. But it's mischief, man. Okay. It's just a system of complete control. All right. To where you're going to take on his image. You're going to act exactly how he wants you to act, or you won't have access to anything. Okay. He wants life and death, prosperity and poverty to go through him on a whole nother level. Okay. Verse 17 says, for they eat the bread of wickedness. Okay. This is their philosophy is wickedness, man. Their bread. All right. And drink the wine of violence, man, because it's going to go from volunteering to get these things. He's going to make it inconvenient for you not to have it. Then he's going to mandate it. And according to Revelation 13, okay, hey, he's going to call people to die. Okay, it's going to be under the threat of imminent death not to have it, which is violence, man. Okay, and this is where we're going to have to make a hard stance in righteousness, man. Okay, so let's go to here in Ezekiel, okay, 28:5 in the NLT. It says, yes, your wisdom has made you very rich. Okay, because the devil has all this tech. Okay, he has all these systems in place. Okay, where the wealth flows to him. His influence dominates the world. He dominates economically, militarily, politically. Okay, and your riches have made you very proud. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says, because you think you are as wise as a God. You think you're wise as the Most High. Okay, this is what this devil is at, to where he wants to know everything, see everything. Okay, he wants to be inside your DNA. All right, your neurological system. He just, he think he that. Okay, it says, I will bring against you a foreign army, the terrors of the nations. They will draw their swords against your marvelous wisdom and defile your splendor, man. And this is America being destroyed, which is a taking down of this beast system. So the Lord is this devil, okay, is trying to pull off this new world order. All right, the Lord is going to cause a great war. Okay, and America is going to be destroyed. These nations are going to be, war torn, and Yahushua is going to return, man. Okay, so as this devil, is attempting, all right, to run to this new world order where he's just running to his own destruction, man. But just looking at how things are trending, we're going to see what he does with digital ID. We're going to see what this real ID turns into. We're going to see, how this devil is going to try to pull this thing off, man. But we know his end game. All right. So there was a point, just want to get into their Lord will. All right, you brothers and you sisters edified once again. I'm going to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakapadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful Shalom.